Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Gallagher here. Today I'll be reading to you Bunjil, the creation story. And this story is very special because it's a creation story for the Wurundjeri people, the people that are from Melbourne, so Melbourne's first people. And I want you to pay particular attention to the images and the natural objects that have been used in the retelling of this story. We might also pause along the way and have a little chat and a little bit of a discussion. Okay, just a bit of background information. It says here, according to their traditions, Bunjil, who was their protector and their creator, travelled as an eagle. Another character you'll hear in this story is Wang or Wa, who is a crow who also protects the rivers, the creeks and the waterways. Bunjil taught all of his people, who were the wise old men and the women, to help all visitors and make them promise that they would protect and not harm the land, the water, and not to harm his children. So now I'll be sharing this story, and this book was actually put together for a small primary school in Melbourne. Bunjil. Long ago, Bunjil was a very powerful man who took on the spirit of an eagle. He was the head man of the Kulin. Bunjil had 2 wives. One of his wives, Bobo, had a face he had never seen. He also had a son named Binbil and 2 brothers. Bunjil also commanded 6 younger men who went together in pairs looking after the people for him. The 6 young men were named Jat the Nankeen Kestrel. Okay, it's a type of bird, children, a type of Australian bird. Thara was the white hawk. Yupkope was the green parakeet. Laguk was the blue mountain parrot. And Wallet, the brushed-tailed possum. And Uran, the glider possum. Bunjil carried a large blade that he used to make the land. He travelled around cutting the rivers and the mountains and all the different shapes of the land. When he completed making the earth, he created man. Bunjil first made 2 men from clay. Now children, I'm going to invite you to pause the video here and I want you to have a little think. Are you making any connections at the moment to any other stories that we may have heard from or we may have read about? So pause now and I'd like you to have a little think. Coming back, I bet I know what most of you are thinking about, and if it was anything like me, I was thinking about our very own Bible, our very own creation story, because this Bunjil creation story reminds me of the one in our Bible, where God created the earth in 7 days and created the mountains and the people and the animals. So I wonder if you made a similar connection like me. So Bunjil made the 2 men. With his blade, he cut 3 sheets of bark off a tree. On one of these, he placed some of the clay and he worked it into a proper consistency. That means he really got it into a good, nice, soft mould. When the clay was soft, he carried some of it to one piece of bark and he started to form the clay into man. He started at their feet. Then he made the legs and then he formed the trunk, which is their body. Then the arms and the head. He made a man on each of the 2 pieces of bark. He was pleased with his work. He looked at the men a long time before he danced around them. Again, children, I might ask you to stop and have a little think. What's similar and what's different to our own creation story? Yes, that's right. You're probably thinking, well, in our creation story, in our Bible, we have Adam and Eve, which is a man and a woman. And in this creation story, Bunjil created two men. But I think you'll agree that both Bunjil and God were very pleased with the work they had done. Next, Bunjil took stringy bark from a tree, this type of bark, and he made hair, and he placed it onto their heads. One had straight hair and one had curly hair. Bunjil again looked at his work, very much pleased, and once more he danced around them. After smoothing their bodies with his hands from the feet upwards to their heads, he lay upon each of them and blew his breath into their mouths, into their noses, and into their navels, which is their belly button, and breathing very hard, they stirred. He danced around their bodies a third time. He then made them speak, and he caused them to rise up. They appeared as full-grown young men. He taught the men to make weapons, how to fight and how to behave with one another. When he had finished, it was time for him to leave. So he gathered about him his wives, his sons, and he asked Wang, who travelled as a crow, who was in charge of the wind, to open his bag and let out some wind. Wang opened his bag and let out a great wind which blew great trees into the air. Bunjil said that was not enough wind, let out some more. So Wang opened all of his bag at once and lifted Bunjil and his people into the sky. And today they look down upon the land as stars, and Bunjil is the star Altair. So boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed this story of Bunjil, the creation story. And what your job is going to be throughout the next few lessons is to find your own beautiful pieces of nature that you've probably got in your backyard or at the park or, in your front yard, garden. And it's going to be finding parts of nature, so some bark, maybe you've got some Play-Doh at home or some mud from the garden. You might be able to find some leaves, okay, some rocks, some fur, maybe if you've got a cat or a dog, some fur, some other sticks, different textures. And your job is going to be to share with us one of the parts of this story, recreating some natural, using those natural objects to recreate. So boys and girls, thank you for listening. And just to remind you, this was called Bunjil, the creation story.